which led to brain surgery, which led to open heart surgery, which creates enormous pain that I live in. But because of being struck by lightning, I discovered something that is the absolute, completely unadulterated truth. Nobody dies. It does not happen. We create a whole reality around a physical existence, which, when you look at that physical existence quantitatively, like in reality, think of what you come up with, everybody. The basic known physical element for most of us is the atom. There are subatomic particles smaller than the atom, but let's just use it. So in the physical world, we're based in atoms. If you put an atom under an electron microscope, it's 99.999996% empty space or there and about. And then atoms make up molecules. And if you put a molecule under an electron microscope, it's 99.99996 or there and about empty space. And molecules make up cells. And if you put a cell under an electron microscope, it's 99.9999999 forever empty space. So when you're starting to think about yourself as a physical being, based on proven science, exactly how much of you is physical? How much? Because there is the real place you start looking at the world we're living in right now, where people who are dying, like lying in a bed. When I was struck by lightning, I was dead for 28 minutes, and I discovered why I can say we don't die. Okay, and I discovered that we are spiritual and ethereal beings. But what I discovered is the most important is there is a divine order at work that we are co-operators in. We are co-responsible for the world that we're creating and manifesting. And a part about dying is when you have to face that and look at it while you're suffering. 2 years ago, I was dying. I had 12% heart function, and I had to have open heart surgery because I had an aneurysm under my aortic valve that was killing me. No one wanted to do the surgery because they knew I would not make it through it. And then a little Vietnamese doctor decided with his little tiny hands, she decided to come in and put them in my chest. What she told me was the amount of scar tissue in there, it's unbelievable how my heart works. And she rebuilt it. And she came out and told my family that there was a good chance I would not make it, but she was hopeful. Well, 5 days after having that surgery, I went into cardiac arrest. And I went into cardiac arrest twice. In the course of going into it twice, I got a chance to see what happens when we just get out of our body. This is reality, everybody. Now listen to me. Never want to know everything. Because by the time I was facing open heart surgery and intimate death, then what goes on through your mind, knowing how much damage is done to me, is a good place for you guys to take a breath and listen to reality. And our reality can work for you in times where you're being pushed to be scared to death. And even more importantly, to be afraid of death. And then equally to be isolated, which creates loneliness and creates an emptiness that usually dispels loss and grief. For all those things to be happening at once, for me, from where I come from, I believe that it's planned. There's too much coincidence that's occurring. So you don't die. It's not going to happen. So what should you pay attention to? Here's what you should pay attention to. Every way and means that you can communicate with someone you love. in every way and means, through a cell phone or through chat or through Zoom or through any of these mediums that you can find, that you connect with them. This is what you do. You find a way to communicate, and or if you find someone who will hold that phone or hold that computer or hold that laptop so that that person can hear your voice and or see you. It's not near as good as being there, but you'll be amazed at how much confidence, control, security, and non-loneliness is created. So what I normally do when I get here, when I'm in front of all of you with my insane self, I just ask you to take a breath. So I'm going to do that now. Take a deep breath. Realize you will never die. It's insane to think you will die. How do I know that? I have died and I was still me, much to my chagrin, very often. so, so take a breath and realize this. You chose to come here, and you were chosen to come here. So that means you set up, I can't say a deal, but you set up a series of opportunities so that what you were chosen to come here for, which is just being you, doing the right things based on the decision that you make, and what you choose to come to create obstacles and or opportunities to see a direction. So when you look at where we are, and you look at the crisis that we're living in, and you look at the insanity that's perpetuating and driving it on a global scale, it all still just gets back down to you. It always gets back down to how well are you taking care of yourself? How well are you taking care of breathing? How well are you paying attention to when you eat and what you eat? And how well do you pay attention on having a program or an ideology about how you're going to maintain your health on an everyday basis? Because if you don't have you, you'll never be able to deal with everything that's occurring and being perpetuated around us. Next, how much do you know about the stories you're being told that is happening that is supposed to mandate you taking a vaccine? To mandate that you would take a vaccine. Well, when you get there, everybody, you realize that in order for that to happen, you have to go back through history and what is called peace agreements and treaties that stop wars. And if you break one part of that treaty and one part of that war, one part of that peace agreement, then you nullify the rest of it, is how it usually goes. Well, in the Nuremberg trials at the end of World War II, and when the Japanese were doing experimenting on American soldiers, it passed a part of the Nuremberg Treaty was that no one could be forced to take anything as a part of the peace agreement signed between America, Germany, and Japan. So when we get to those kind of places and knowing that we're not going to die, it should become more interesting to us to look at how and what it all means and what decisions do we make about who and where we are. So most importantly to me is I love you and I'm glad that you're here with me. And I'm glad that I'm not alone in coming on a Saturday afternoon, spending time together about who we are and what our jobs are, and what our ideas are. Healthcare is the most important issue that comes no matter who and what's happening in political office. Number two, when you come to a place to be separated and going through fear and death, and at the same time, you begin to see there is a possibility that your vote, we the people, is being questioned in such a way that when you listen to this information, you have to be aware of what's occurring. So at the same time that everything is going insane around each of us and in our world, it's happening on a national level and it's happening on a global level. That means a change is afoot. My luckiest moment about this is in the first lightning strike, in the first near death experience. I got a chance to see what the probable possibilities of the future would be. This particular part of where we are is Saved by the Light, Chapter 5, Box 12. Describes the vaccine and the virus and what it's supposed to do and how it will work and how it'll either position a global problem, which I always thought would be a war. But since I believe that the battle for the souls of humankind would be fought in healthcare, and I've lived my whole life believing that, then my definition of war is seeming to change and migrate. So if all of this is happening, and it is, and all of us are facing things that could be mandatory and control and limit us to who and where we are. That means it's the most important time right now to be the spiritual being, to count your blessings, to look at gratitude and what you're thankful for. You know, not what's being taken away and not what's being crammed down your throat for you to decide that that's the reality. You're a spiritual being. Taking good care of yourself blocks so much of the energy that comes with the consciousness of what a virus or a bacteria is. It's the propaganda that creates the all-encompassing nature of fear because we as spiritual beings know when you don't die, and if I didn't go to hell, nobody's going to hell. Then from that point of view, there is that place where you don't get so serious about all of this because it keeps you from putting your head above the clouds and to see who you are today and where you are today and why you're here today. So I think we're all here to just get a moment of reinforcement, to really support Kenny and knowing and appreciate what Kenny goes through and what it takes to put on this program because I am probably, maybe me, Mary Ann, I am probably one of the longest surviving person in this because I hate to say it, but when I talk about death, really never goes out of style. One day everybody's going to realize that it never really happens, but it's usually going to be about the 2 seconds after they take their last breath. So my job is to give you a moment before that 2 seconds comes. Everybody always wish they just had 5 more minutes. Well, let's let what this program is today to be that 5 more minutes. Take a breath. Nobody dies, and that doesn't happen. Then we have to just look at what we are responsible for, why we're responsible for it, and why we choose to have this much fun. So what I want in this whole program, other than true gratitude, is to be thankful that each of you have chosen today to change your life, or to look at your life and to use a program that we used to attend to together, and spend time together and talk to each other and hug each other and feel that companionship between us and know that we're not alone and knowing that we're not helpless as we try to understand the world that we live in. And the fact that we have to do it this way, I'm not as happy about it, but I'm thankful for it. So I would also like to do something else today because it's really about being thankful, because without gratitude and being thankful in a time where everything that we supposedly claim and have, the celebrations of family and to be with our loved ones as they pass and to be able to go to see them and to be able to visit with people and to go to worship and